let's go ahead and get started. I know this is the reason why we're all here this morning. Coach went through a whole bunch of stuff, and I'm sure he'll share with you the story. But needless to say, he's a ball coach's coach. He's old school when it comes to that. You see, I had to go get the overhead and that kind of stuff. But he loves to talk ball, and I'm so excited. And we don't need to go through resumes, so I'm going to turn it over to Coach Mumme.
Hey, thanks, guys. How about that? It came on, George.
Hey, something's got to go right.
Yeah. Well, George had a good idea since I was late last night. I had a tough life this week. I had to go to Pebble Beach and play golf for 4 days. And somebody from Bellhaven had to do it, so I volunteered. And so I was flying back to here, kind of cross country, so we stopped in Dallas. We got to change planes, and we had 5 hours on the tarmac there. So I got pretty friendly with the stewardesses and everything. And they were nice people. They didn't like being in the plane for 5 hours either. So I don't know, have you ever, here's a thought. When you're on a plane for 5 hours, you start thinking about all kinds of stuff. So, have you ever noticed how when you go in the bathrooms, in the lavatories, they still have ashtrays? Now think about that. So I walk out, I come out of the lavatory, and she's standing there, and I go, let me ask you a question. Since it's like a felony and a huge fine to smoke on a plane, why would we put ashtrays in the lavatories? And she goes, oh, that's a regulation we have to do, because if anybody's going to sneak back here and smoke, they got to have a place to put the cigarette when they're done, because we don't want them to hurt the plane. Wow. I thought about it, man. I said, isn't that kind of like if you're going to, since people are going to naturally kind of rob banks occasionally, should we leave cars running outside so they have a place to, get away? I mean, anyway, so I kind of had a lot of stuff to think about there. And one of the other things I was thinking about was how this last year at SMU, June Jones got me to come over there and coach with him, and that was a really enjoyable deal. We learned a lot, and we traded a lot of ideas, and so that's what Air Raid 2.0 is all the ideas I got from June, and I think they're probably going to do the same thing at SMU, except they're going to do it slow. They like coming out of a huddle, and we like not doing that. And but I got to thinking about all that this whole year, and so right now we're just going to talk for about 30 minutes. I'm going to talk about all this stuff, and then when you come back, we're going to drop all the 2.0 plays. Okay, and then I've got video. If any of you want to say, how long do I have when we come back, George? I know you got other speakers coming. So. Okay, so I can go as long as I want. All right, so we'll go through each play, and y'all can answer, because I know when you come to clinics, the last thing you want to do is hear somebody talk about themselves or talk about philosophy and all that kind of nonsense. So we're going to draw plays, but since we only got 30 minutes, you're kind of captured right now, so we're going to talk about philosophy and talk about me. So anyway, we're out at Pebble Beach, and Rick Neuheisel plays there every year. He's a really good golfer. He always kicks everybody's ass. And he also plays the guitar, and he's pretty talented. In fact, he probably should have gone into entertainment instead of coaching. And I tell him that all the time. We had his kid. I coached his kid at SMU this year, Jack, who's really a nice guy. So anyway, we're good friends. But he loves. I'm a big Jimmy Buffett fan, as those of you that went to Key West know. All you parrot heads out there. So I'm always trying to get Neuheisel. When what he does is he makes all the coaches get up and sing, which gets pretty embarrassing. And because he can sing, nobody else can. He makes Spike Dykes, the old coach from Texas Tech, sing "Wall Boom," and he gets up there and rants on. And then at night he goes in the bar and he brings his guitar and he starts playing all his tunes. So his favorite thing to play is the Eagles. And every time I hear an Eagles song, I always think about Don Henley's quote that you have to have a great capacity for boredom to be great. And about 15 years ago, I was watching, I'm kind of a night owl and I stay up a lot, so I'm watching VH1, and their interview is when the Eagles had their reunion tour, and they decided to make money again. So they went on tour, and they're interviewing Don Henley, and they ask him, you old guys in the room will know this, to explain it to the young guys later. But there used to be a thing called car radios, you know. And when the Eagles came out with a new tune, I mean, you could turn on your car radio, you could hear the first bar or the first line, and it could be a brand new song that you've never heard before, but you knew that was the Eagles, just by the clarity and the way it sounded, and that's what made them such a great band. So anyway, the question to Henley was, how is it that y'all became America's best rock group in the 80s and the 90s? And he said, because we had a great capacity for boredom. And so what they would do is they would go in the recording studio and they would take each line or each chord and they would play it. And they would play it 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 5 times, 10 times, 20 times, until Don was satisfied with it. He was kind of the coach of the Eagles. Everybody, he had all these crazy guys like Joe Walsh and Glenn Fry that could do anything with a guitar, their voices, or various instruments. And so he was always trying to corral them, because they'd be off doing all kinds of stuff, but he'd corral them and say, all right, play that again. Play it again, play it again, play it again, play it again. And then when he got it just like he wanted to hear it, just like he knew it would be, then they would do the next one. And that's how they put a song together. And it took days, you know, hours of work and days. And so his answer to the question of how did y'all do that was, we had a great capacity for boredom. And so I got to thinking, you know, that's a great line. I'm going to start using that, because that's really what we do. If you run air raid offense or anything like it, you know, there was a big deal this week. We got a bunch of publicity on Mike and Mike because they started talking about Johnny Manziel, and they wanted to know how he'd do with the Browns. Personally, I hope he does better than the last guy that they took from an offense like ours. I texted Tim when he got drafted, and I texted him, I said, you got any advice for Johnny Manziel? And he texted back, yeah, I'll tell him to learn how to throw from your ass. But Mike and Mike had this like week-long discussion about playbook, no playbook, okay? Now we have a playbook, and you can get it if you join our system. We'll give it to you, but we never use it on players. It's just for you guys. And we never have. And so Johnny comes out of our system at A&M with Sumlin and Dana Holders and all those guys, Cliff Kingsbury. And so he's never really had a playbook. And so apparently with the NFL, that's a big deal. And so they're all afraid he won't be able to read. But you know, Kerrville High School is a pretty good place in Texas. I think they taught it too. So, anyway, they had all this stuff going on. They wanted to know all about Johnny Manziel. Would he be able to read a playbook? Just like they did 15 years ago when the Couch went there. They, well, you know, he won't be able, you know, he's never had a playbook. He won't be able to read a playbook. Really? It's in English, right? So the way you had to call the plays didn't sound like it was English. But, you know, I just told them, look, the biggest thing is just the verbiage. The NFL has all this verbiage. They got to tell everybody what to do on every play, which was another mystery to me, too, because I always thought those guys were getting paid a lot of money to know what to do. Whereas college guys or high school guys, you know, maybe they got a little scholarship where they're playing for fun, that kind of thing. But they seem to be able to get it. If you just say Blue 92, everybody knows it's mesh. But in the NFL, you would have to say like 18 words. You have to tell everybody what to do. So I never understood why that worked that way. They're not going to change, so poor Johnny's going to have to learn how to read between now and training camp. But anyway, so we're going to talk about some of that stuff and how all that's important. But reps are important. I'm not just philosophically against playbooks. I just always thought it was kind of a waste of time, because all you ever did was make them up, and then they stayed on somebody's desk, or if you gave them to the kids, they ended up on the locker room floor. You know, and the NFL's got all that stuff they do where they fine you like $1 gazillion if you lose your playbook, which kind of tells me that the kids in the NFL are just like the kids in their junior high. They're going to leave their playbook in the locker room. It's more important to do the reps than it is to read about them, you know? And it's more important to have a few plays that you can execute. And if you can do that, then you got a chance to have a great offense. Now that's been true of every offense at any time. Tubby Raymond, Wing T, Delaware, few plays. Darrell Royal, Wishbone, University of Texas, very few plays. I mean, you can name all the great offenses there have ever been in the whole history of football. Pop Warner, Study Your Football. If you want to read a great book, there's two great books to read right now. One of them is Stretch the Cornfield, and that's about me, so you should definitely read that one. And Chrissy's selling it out there. But the other one you should read is called the Real All-Americans, and this lady that writes for the New York Times wrote it. Her name's Sally Jenkins. It's about Pop Warner in the Carlisle Indian School when he was there. Has anybody read it? Raise your hand if you read it. I don't think Sally sold a lot of those. But great book, great football book. You should read. Pop Warner invented everything. You know, everybody's always, you know, being gracious like George was with me, but I didn't invent anything. I just packaged it. Mike Leach we didn't invent anything. We just packaged it. It's like cookies. You know, Nabisco didn't invent cookies. They just packaged up Oreos, right? This came up how to do the cookie and then how many to put in a package. You know, that sort of thing. So that's what we did. We shamelessly stole everything we do from about three people. Lavelle Edwards, Mouse Davis, and Bill Walsh. And there's a few other contributors along the way, but all of it comes from them. And then we just packaged it into something that we could teach quickly. And because we started playing fast in 1991, and that's what that book she's selling is about, it became really important to just have a few plays and be able to communicate them really fast. And so for us, like if we want to run mesh, okay? The signal for mesh is something like this. It'll go. And that's it. And the quarterback will see that, and he'll look out there, and he'll say a code word to the line so they know how to block, and there's really only two code words. And then, so they know it's either or. Even if they guess, they got a 50-50 chance of getting it right. I mean, we've had some real dumbasses that play the line. They would pass block on every run play, knowing that they didn't hear the call, so they just figured, well, you know, good chance it's going to be a pass. 90% chance it's going to be a pass. Not when in doubt, pass pro. So anyway, they'll look out there. So I give him this, okay, and he looks out there and he goes to the receivers. He says the code word to these guys. He goes like this to these guys, maybe the slots. That's it. That's all he has to do. And then our center calls the snap count. And we didn't do that when Ernest was with me at New Mexico State. We let Chase call the snap count there. But this is a better deal. When I got to McMurray, the great thing about having a bunch of different jobs is you learn a lot of stuff from all the kids, particularly the quarterbacks. Quarterbacks always teach you how to do stuff. So always listen to the quarterback. But when we got to McMurray, our quarterback stuttered. And he hadn't played football in 2 years. He'd been a baseball player. I kind of recruited him off the baseball field because he was the only guy in school that could throw balls. And I mean, it sounds like high school, really, but I got to the college, there was about 40 guys show up. All the quarterbacks had transferred. The only ones left were the guys who couldn't play a lick. And they'd been running the wishbone before I got there, so none of them were kind of fit the bill. So I asked the kids, I said, look, are there any quarterbacks on campus? And they go, well, yeah, the best one on campus plays intramural football. So you haven't won a game in 2 years, and your best quarterback plays intramural football. That's kind of part of the course, right? So I go watch this big left. He's a big right fielder, and he can throw, and he's about 6'4", 230, a great athlete. So he wanted to come out. He comes out, but he comes to my office, and he goes, hi, I'm Jake Mullen. Okay, we're going to let the center call us now. I know you can throw. So we started doing that, but after Jake, we just kept doing it because it was so good. I mean, I even got him doing it at SMU this year. But it just made it easier. So that's another thing you take off of them, see? The other thing that in a lot of offenses, all the quarterbacks have to, and this happens in the NFL, this will kill me as well too, because you got to call they make the quarterback call the line protections. And of course, there's like 25 of them, you know. you got a menu like this to choose from, and you have exactly 5 seconds to figure out which one you're going to call. So we took that off of them too. And we got that from Roger French. And when I go over later on, I'll tell you the story, but it's pretty good about how at BYU they quit doing that because the quarterbacks couldn't figure it out. So anyway, there's a lot of stuff we can draw up and talk about. I got some notes. I usually don't do this, but I'm kind of foggy today. Let's see, we got it on here too. All right, well, I already told you about the book. If you want to do our system, if you go online, email Chrissy and mention you were here at North Carolina, or just mention the North Carolina Clinic, they'll give you that discount. And Air Raid 2.0, that's what we're going to do when we come back. It's all the kind of new stuff. Apparently everybody, this deal got popular, and a lot of people are running it now. When I got to SMU, I walked into Tom Mason's office. He's the defensive coordinator. And he looks at me and he goes, "Man, I'm glad you're here." I turn around and see who he was talking to. And then I go, "Nobody's ever said that to me before that coached defense." And he said, "Well, you know, we got to play like 5 of your little cult this year, so it'll be good to practice against you." So the other thing is, we have a clinic in San Antonio. If y'all want to follow us around down there, the Menger Hotel's a really neat place. The only reason we do these clinics, I mean, we love doing these, and if y'all sign up for the system, we'll come do one for you. That's part of the deal. And but we only do, we'll usually have 2 clinics a year that we put on, and we only do them in places that are fun. That way, if nobody shows up, we still have fun anyway. And the one at the Menger, this will be the 3rd year of it, and it's really good. I mean, the Menger's got ghosts in it. It's been there since 1859. Babe Ruth stayed there. All 7 presidents have stayed there. It's right next to the Alamo. How many of y'all been to San Antonio? All you guys from North Carolina, y'all know where it's at. But if you've been there, everybody goes to Riverwalk. Well, the Menger's not on the Riverwalk. It's right by the Alamo, so it's a really neat place. And it's cheap too. It's like 99 bucks. So, and then if you're interested in wrapping your headgear, George is going to have, they're going to have a machine in this area. They can show you all about that. If you want to change the look of your helmet, I patented a way to do that, and it's cheap compared to everything else you could do. Let's see. But anyway, the reason we came up with 2.0 is because there's so many people doing it. You got to. Bill Walsh used to say you need to tweak your offense. He was talking about the NFL, but you need to tweak your offense about 10 to 20% about every 5 years. That was his thought. And so I really hadn't tweaked it in a long time. The biggest thing we had done was we started running the inside zone the way Dana Holgerson was doing it at Houston. And but other than that, Mike Leach and I had done everything just about the same for about 20 years. And then everybody starts doing it. So when I had a chance to go with June and learn how to run some of the run and shoot routes, I wanted to go. We've always run some of various places. At Iowa Wesleyan, we did it. At Valdosta State, we did a little bit of it. New Mexico State, we did it. But I wanted to learn how to do it better. So that's what we're going to go over all that in writing. And if you want to see it, I've got some video that I'll show you after. We won't cut into time for the other speakers, but if y'all want to hang around, I'll be around all day, and you can look at it. It'll be the Bellhaven video from this spring, which will be a unique video that'll never be seen before, because many of the players you'll see on that video will never ever be seen on a video again. And they won 3 games last year, so that's why they hired me. So any of you young guys who want to be head coaches, that's the kind of jobs you usually get, you know. So you got to be able to do something that gives you an edge. Okay, George, how are we doing? You ready to go to lunch?